Welcome to Benedictine Bytes. I'm Sister Kathy, the Vocation Director for the Benedictine Sisters of Virginia. Today I'm interviewing Sister Andrea Westkamp. Sister Andrea has her own unique story to tell and share with us as to the path that brought her to the Benedictine Sisters of Virginia. Sister Andrea has a number of roles here and gifts that she contributes to the monastery. She is our sub-prioress, and she is also our canonical treasurer for the Benedictine Sisters of Virginia. Sister Andrea also supervises the special care that some of our sisters need from our nurse and our health aides. And she's also a spiritual director and an artist. So we are really excited to welcome Sister Andrea to share her story. So, hi, Sister Andrea.
Hi.
Can you share with us a little bit about your journey as a religious sister?
Certainly. So, when I look at my life, I am very sure that the religious life is really a mystery that we cannot explain. I think that each vocation story is just very unique and touches into that mystery. So I am a native of Germany. I grew up in a little town in Westphalia, that's northwest Germany. And I grew up in a parish that was established in 968. So we're looking back on 1,000+ year history there. So it was for me an upbringing in a very rooted Catholic environment. And it was very much impacted by farm country and by beautiful nature. So already as a little child, when I was 4 or 5, when I was outside riding my bike, I could sense God's presence. And I could see actually God in the trees, in the animals, and God was just all around me. So there was, from an early age on, a very intimate and joyful connection, relationship with God. And so as I, continued on, grew up, I always had this feeling of, I want to do something special, I want to make a difference with my life for others, and I wanted to do something special for God. And when I was about 11, through reading of a novel of actually an American actress who became a Dominican sister, I was on flame with this idea of becoming a sister.
Not an actress.
Not an actress. And I didn't know anything about Dominicans either, but I wanted to become a sister. So at about, when I was 16, I switched schools at that time, and I was in a school that was run by Sisters of Divine Providence. And one of those sisters became a confidant, and I would say my first spiritual director. And she very gently guided me in the practice of daily prayer, of praying the Psalms, of just sitting with scriptures and letting it speak to me, and of course letting God speak to me through scriptures. And so when I was 21, I entered in Germany a missionary Franciscan community, the Missionary Sisters of the Immaculate Conception. And I made my first vows, my final vows, and in 1994 I came to the US. That was like my mission sending. And I lived in New Jersey for a few months, and then moved down to Baltimore, where I was enrolled in the study of pastoral counseling at Loyola. 2 beautiful years, very challenging years, and also a time of interior shifting for myself, because through a classmate at Loyola, I got in touch with the Benedictine Sisters of Baltimore. And that was my exposure to Benedictine life of women lived in the United States, which was different from the cloistered life that I had seen in Germany. I had a great aunt who was a Benedictine sister, and it had never attracted me, her life in the monastery. So anyway, after the 2 years of my studies, I went back to New Jersey, lived with my community, of course, did ministry as a counselor. I also was a vocation director for 6 years. But during that time, I felt moments of uneasiness, of restlessness, and I didn't know what was going on. I had a very good spiritual director who journeyed with me, and I was not sure what was going on with me. And it came all to a moment in about 2008 when ministries came to an end, and I felt I need to do something. This restlessness inside of me, I don't know what that is. I like my life in community. I knew I was called to be a sister, so that was all pretty confusing. And so the general superior of that community asked me at that point to consider going into another mission, Brazil or Angola, Africa. And I felt in her question that this was my call to renewed discernment. And I went to Brazil for a couple of weeks just to see what it would be like. It was a ministry in Sao Paulo. And I came back even more confused. And then I attended a 1-month discernment program for sisters discerning overseas mission. And during that time, I really felt I was not mission material, really. I felt no call inside of me to go to a different country. And it took several more months till I was really sure I needed a little time off. And so I asked to go on a leave of absence, also known as extrostration, which is a difficult word. And so I came to Virginia, lived by myself, and did very deep discernment. I, of course, also did ministry as a family counselor at that time, and during that year it became very clear that what I felt deep down was a Benedictine calling. And so in 2011 I came here to the Benedictine Sisters of Virginia. I've made a profession here.
Yes. Before that, though, you were attending Eucharist here.
Oh yes, I was a Sunday congregation visitor at Mass.
I remember seeing you there.
Yes, I loved walking the property here, to walk the labyrinth and just be here and pray. So on Sundays, my day off, of course, I would spend the time mostly outside, enjoying nature, because I'm still enjoying nature and experience God there. And
yes, you do walks every day, pretty much, don't you?
Absolutely.
She takes the dog Gypsy with her mostly.
Yeah.
She's one of the moms of Gypsy. We have many of them here at the monastery.
Yes, because I think God has called us to live this kinship we have with all of creation. And that's the fullness of our call, I believe. So the life in the monastery is just, I think, what God had called me all along while God wanted me to be in the United States. I believe, and that's part of this mystery, that there's nothing happening in our lives that God can't use. And so that our prayer every day, or lectio, like we call it in the Benedictine world, always has us listening very deeply to what God is saying to us in each and every moment. A call is not once and for all. A call can occur every day, and more often than not, it's a deepening of the original call we actually get at our baptism.
Yes, and through that prayer and listening each day for that call, what you're sharing is that you live an intentional life.
Oh yes,
every
very
single
much
day.
So. And the rhythm of the daily schedule in the monastery is just very helpful to live this intentional life, to have the time for community prayer, for silence, for personal prayer, for meal times together, recreation together, and of course the different works and ministries we do. So that is a very helpful, and it's just a gift that we have in the monastery.
So it's ora et labora, right? Pray and work. That's what we do here.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And then we also have this big group of oblates, people that
Right.
live a Benedictine call as well, but they don't feel called to live in community like we. And so we have this big network, if you will, of a couple hundred of people that belong to us in this way. And that also in their daily life have their own structure of prayer time, work time, and community time when they come together once a month here, or they have small groups that meet more often.
And they go through a process as well
Of
of
formation, yes.
right?
Yes, so they come as inquirers for a year, then they're novices for a year, and then they make their oblation, which is a lifelong commitment to this particular monastery. Mm-hmm.
Yes, and they do that right at the altar with the prioress and sign a paper, as just like the sisters do when we make our final profession or final
Yes.
vows.
Yes.
It's very exciting, and they place that on the altar, and the altar represents Christ at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a really awesome thing, and it shows that their commitment is powerful and real. It's not just becoming friendly with us. They are living the rule of Benedict
Absolutely.
as we do, and sometimes amazingly
Mm-hmm.
well.
So there is always an attraction, I would say, when we feel God is calling us, that there's a vocation. It's an attraction. It's something that's nudging us and pulling us, and it's like you cannot shake it, even if you would like to, or if your parents or friends had different plans for you. You cannot but respond, is my experience. Mm-hmm.
Yes, it's a powerful pull from the Lord, and it's a beautiful life, really. If God is calling you to it, it's a beautiful life.
Oh yes, and we have so many role models. I mean, when we look at the saints or people we know personally, and then when you sit with Scripture every day, those people in the Scriptures come to life, and they speak to you about their own experience with God, their own God encounter. And we can sit with that and ponder our own God encounters that we have, most likely every day, if we really intentionally focus on what's going on in our daily lives.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing, and it's interesting to find after living here for a few years, you realize something's happened to me. I'm not exactly the same person I was when I came in that door. I've changed, and maybe in a way that makes me a little calmer, a little more at peace, but certainly much more committed to living that gospel life of being Christ-centered, which is really the motivation in the Rule of Benedict, to be Christ to each person that we meet, and to see Christ in each person we meet. That's a big, important piece of Benedictine life.
Yes, yes, the awareness that Christ is alive.
Yes, it's beautiful.
So I would encourage all of you that might want to look or take a deeper look at religious life, at a possible vocation. Let it happen to you. Do not be afraid. That was one of the sayings that Pope Johannes Paul II had actually each time he encountered especially young people. Do not be afraid. God is with you. You will be accompanied on your journey, even if it looks scary. Deep down, it is that mystery that God invites you to. And like I always said when I was vocation director, and why not answer now?
Yes. And as I would say, can you say yes when God calls? Just one yes can make a very big difference in your life. And then you will continue saying yes, maybe every day.
Yeah.
That's part of the vocation, I think, to continually say yes to God as He calls you in different ways.
Yes, absolutely.
And you never know what role you're going to have here, so it's always an adventure. It is.
Yes, and the role is not important.
Not at
Important
all,
is the
really.
life.
Yes.
Yeah.
Living in that community, and and knowing you're not alone.
Mm-hmm.
Not that you are anyway, because God is always present. But here, God is present in all of the sisters as well. So we are not alone.
Yeah.
We are really comforted by that.
We carry each other.
We do. Yes.
Mhm.
Well, I think maybe that would be our time together. I've actually learned more about Sister Andrea than I knew before this interview as well. So this was very interesting for me too. And I hope that you've enjoyed getting to know one of our sisters better. And I hope that if you have the call from God, you say yes. God bless.